Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and today we're going to be revisiting a band I only did about a week or so ago, a band called Epta Astera. Now the reason I'm doing this is because they just released the first single of their upcoming album Feste Burg. Now I was actually contacted by their record company and asked to write a review of this album, which I did. I wrote up a review on my Facebook page, and this album absolutely stunned me. It was something absolutely phenomenal, something I'd never ever heard before, and I absolutely loved this album. It was very different from anything I'd ever heard. So when this single got released, I decided I want to cover that track. Now, I spoke briefly about the band in an earlier video I did called Invidia, which was off one of their older albums. And it's Gregorian folk music with black metal elements, a little bit of psychedelic rock guitar thrown in there. It's a very strange combination of sounds that sound contradictory but work very, very well together. And they released this track, Metanoia, which is the third track off the Feste Burg album. Now, when I did the Invidia reaction video, I did speak very briefly about the story of Feste Burg and what it is. It's about a real-life event that happened on October 31st, 1517, when a German monk by the name of Martin Luther nailed a pamphlet to the door of a small church in Germany, and it set in motion an era of violent upheaval, and it would cause repercussions throughout history that lasted for centuries. It's there's a bloody spider web there, and it's a exceptional piece of work, and I absolutely loved it. So I spoke to the creator of Feste Burg, and he told me a little bit of information about this specific track, because obviously the entire story of this situation with Martin Luther goes over the entire 8 tracks of the album. So he told me a very specific part about this track itself, and it says, where Metanoia fits into the overarching story is Luther feeling the weight of his own moral depravity, feeling it very, very personally and very, very intensely, because what he's basically doing, he's objecting to the way that the clergy and stuff misuse their powers, and how they get away with stuff that they really shouldn't be getting away with. That's essentially what he's talking about. And he's feeling the weight of the fact that he's also been part of that. He's getting away with it, and he wants to change that. So he's feeling responsible for something that he knows is wrong, and he wants to change. And feeling that the depravity, and the fact that he's been taking part of this, he feels that he will never be good enough, and that the penance recommended by the church wouldn't even begin to scratch the surface of the problem that he's facing. And that was the situation that made him realise how wrong the existing approach to penance was, and that eventually snowballed and turned into the Reformation that he essentially started. But also, he told me that the song is also a very, very personal thing for him, because this is the only track on the album that he actually wrote the lyrics to himself. All of the other tracks sort of use ancient texts that talk about this period in time. He's taken excerpts from that, and formed them into these epic pieces of music. But this one he actually wrote himself, and he actually wrote this after a death of a very, very close friend of his, who felt in a similar way to Martin Luther. He felt the weight of his own, he felt weight of depravity and the same sort of personal intense and anguish feelings that Martin Luther felt in a very similar way. And so he wrote the song because he saw a lot of parallels between the two people. But not only in the actual struggles that these people faced, but the potential that these two people had to affect change. So the song is actually dedicated to his friend as well, which I think is a very, very beautiful thing. I think it's lovely when songs have that sort of deep-seated meaning. Not only does it actually tell a story, but it has a personal feeling to it as well. So it's a very, very nice thing. He was also very, very nice to furnish me with the lyrics to the track. So we'll be looking at those as we go. And like I said, this is Gregorian folk metal. So, it's a very unusual sound. If you looked at the NVIDIA track when I did that, you'll know what I'm talking about. But we're going to go into this track and have a look at it. I've already heard it before, obviously, because I've done a review for the whole album, but I wanted to share it with everybody because it's a fantastic piece of music. So yeah, I'm going to go into that now. I've been talking for about 6 minutes. So we're going to look at the track Metanoia by Epta Astera. So let's go. There we go. That was Metanoia by Epta Astera, and it is just such a beautiful piece of music. And there is a spider crawling on my microphone. What are you doing? Anyway, it's such a beautiful piece of music. It's not the heaviest track on the album, as you can clearly tell, but it is such a beautiful piece of music. I mean, it's phenomenal. Just the sound of his voice, that sort of Gregorian sort of chanting vocal, it just sounds beautiful. The music in the background is really quite nice. You've got very subtle guitars in the background. You've got what I believe is the hurdy-gurdy playing sort of a main melody over the rest of the track. It's just such a beautiful piece of music. And the lyrics go, I beseech thee for grace, I cry out with covered face, sleepless lamentation neath the morning star. Against thee have I sinned, gone astray and sown the wind, more iniquities before me ever are. So this is the point where he's looking at it going, look, I've done some really bad things, and he's sort of praying, reaching out to God, just like, I've gone astray, I've sort of forgotten all that I stand for, I'm supposed to be this symbol of goodness, righteousness, and really I've become sort of corrupt in a way, so he's reaching out, praying to God, please forgive me, please help me, please guide me, turn me to become the person I should be. It carries on, why dost thou hold out Christ and deny us paradise? Who can stand before the righteous uncondemned? Born into Adam's seed, into filth and desperate need, and no power of will with which my soul to mend. So, he's saying, he's got no power of will. He can't figure out how to correct himself. That spider is very distracting. He's struggling to find a way to will himself forward, how is he going to fix this? He doesn't know how he's going to fix it. He's not sure what he can do to make it right again. It carries on, by my works I must fail, only reprobations wail. Can I offer now thy mercy to arouse? Christ for his chosen hath borne the weight of holy wrath. How then shall my soul be one that he avows? So it's like, after all I've done, how can Christ forgive me for everything? For everything I've done, how can he forgive me? How can I hope that he will once again bring me back into his embrace and, forgive me for everything that I have done? And it goes, take thou heed, O my soul, he may render yet thee whole. In no other mayest thou thyself be trust. Thou art stone, thou art cold, for thy sake be thou bold, and descry that faith by which shall live the just. So he's like, that last thing is like, take thou heed, O my soul, he may render yet thee whole. So it's like, just, listen to what he's got to say and actually pay attention to what's going on, and you may yet be absolved. You may be forgiven for what you've done if you can find a way to rectify what you've done. Just follow what he tells you to do, and you will hopefully find a meaning in life, find a way to set everything right. That's a very loose interpretation, I'll grant you, but it's more or less what it's talking about. And it's a beautiful piece of music, and I can see where how he can draw the parallel between that friend of his, who probably went through a crisis, probably thinking, I've done all these things in my life, things that could be considered sins or bad or evil, I've done these things, and what can I do to absolve my sins? And unfortunately, sometimes people don't actually find a way to do it. They struggle too much, but others, they do come through it. So, you know, it's a beautiful piece of music. It's got a beautiful meaning behind it. The actual story behind it is fantastic, and the fact that it's got a deep personal meaning to the writer and performer, it's even better, you know, because that adds even more depth and heart and soul to the piece of music. Yeah, it really gives the song a really strong and powerful meaning, and I just absolutely love it. You know, I mean, you might think it's a very odd combination of musical styles, which it is. I'll grant you that, but it just works so well, and it's like I said, it's something I've never ever experienced or heard before. So I really do urge anybody to give it a try. You know, because you might actually be quite surprised. It's a beautiful, nice, calming album, you know, something really nice that you can chill out to and relax. You know, there are, like I said, elements of black metal in there. You know, sometimes you've got harsh black metal vocals in there. You've got like fast guitars. You've got like hard hitting drums at times. You know, they're not all the sort of quiet, contemplative tracks like this. It is a fantastic album. I highly recommend anybody check it out when it comes out. And it comes out on October 31st. So, you know, keep an eye out for it. You know, check out Feste Burg. And, you know, some of their older tracks, you can find them on YouTube as well. So it's definitely worth having a look. If you're at all intrigued by this, I would urge you very strongly to do so. But that's all I'm going to say about this as it is. So, yeah, I'm going to leave that as it is. If anybody would like to suggest a track for me to react to, then please do so by all means. You can drop a comment in the comments section below, or message me on my Facebook or my Instagram, or even through my Patreon, where you could also help to support this channel. You know, help me create future content, maybe even, you know, improve the quality of it by getting some better equipment or stuff like that. You know, maybe change this green piece of rubbish that's hanging up behind here. And, you know, if you do make a suggestion, do know it might take me a while to get around to it, though, because I get suggested so many tracks every single day that my list grows faster than I can record the videos. But I do write down every suggestion I get, so it will get done eventually. It's just going to take me a while to get around to it. Metalhead Reacts is also a very proud supporter of the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, a British-based charity whose main goal is to put an end to hate crimes, mainly those aimed towards people of the alternative culture. And it's something I believe in very, very strongly, something I'm very, very passionate about, because every single day, all over the world, people are getting violently attacked because of their taste in music. You know, we hear about all sorts of hate crimes every single day in the news, you know, all over social media. You know, we hear about racism, homophobia, transphobia. We hear about that sort of thing every single day. But what we're not hearing enough about, and what doesn't get the coverage it needs, is people that are getting violently attacked for the taste in music. You know, people are getting brutally beaten. People are getting hospitalised purely for the fact that they listen to heavy metal or alternative music. And it's unacceptable. You know, it doesn't get reported nearly as much as it needs to. You know, if a woman gets beaten by a man, it gets reported. If there is a racially motivated attack, it gets reported and people hear about it. But if someone gets 10 shades beaten out of them just because they listen to heavy metal music, no one ever hears a word of it unless it's an absolute tragedy. You know, you take the situation with Sophie Lancaster, for example. You know, her and her boyfriend, Rob Maltby, walking home, minding their own business, not bothering anybody, and they're set upon by a group of 5 or 6 people who mercilessly beat them so severely that they both end up in comas. You know, and the violence of the attack was so severe that Sophie Lancaster died. You know, she spent 13 days in a coma, she never woke up, and she died after 2 weeks of being in a coma. And just because these people didn't like the fact that she was an alternative person, you know, they didn't like the fact that she listened to alternative music or the fact that she dressed like a goth. That was the only reason for it. You know, and it's unacceptable. But then that sort of thing gets reported. You know, someone dies and it gets talked about. But it shouldn't have to come to that degree of violence and tragedy for it to get spoken about. You know, people are, like I said, people are getting hospitalised, but no one ever hears about it. And I can guarantee that since that situation with Sophie Lancaster, I guarantee that hundreds and millions, people have probably been violently attacked just because of their taste in music. But none of it gets reported, and this needs to change. We need to bring more attention towards it. We need to stop it from happening. And this is what the Sophie Lancaster Foundation is all about. They want to bring more attention to the fact that this is happening. They want more people to know that there are consequences for this. They want people to know the consequences for this. And they don't want to see another family go through what they went through. It shouldn't take the loss of a life people to think, hold on, maybe we need to do something. It shouldn't take that. Nobody should die because of their taste in music. So if you'd like to find out more about the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, there is a link to their website in the description below. You can go over there, find out what they're working on at the moment, find out what their goal is, because they can explain it better than I can. And, if you can help them out in any way, even a small donation or, something as simple as one of these Sophie wristbands from their web store, if you can help them out in any small way, the smallest amount can make the biggest difference. And the sooner we bring more attention to this, the sooner we can help to stamp out prejudice, hatred, and intolerance everywhere. But I'm going to leave that as it is for the time being. Thank you all very, very much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.